Good afternoon. And just a quick update right here with Jaycee Horn. He had surgery yesterday. The surgery went well. Right now, we have a reevaluation in 10 to 12 days. And at that point, we're determined and figure out whether or not there's possibility that he would have a chance to even, continue to finish and play the rest of the year. So that's the only thing I have right now, and I will be able to give you a follow-up, as I just mentioned, in about 10 to 12 days. And with that, I'll take your questions regarding practice in Tampa.
Just timeline-wise, Steve, does that put him in play for the Saints game, or would it be playoff?
Again, 10 to 12 days when they evaluate, and then hopefully it may be in play for the Saints game. I couldn't really pinpoint and tell you exactly.
Coach Wilks, what have you emphasized as the keys going into the game?
Our focus the last couple of weeks has just really been on ourselves in regards to I always feel like teams that play great this time of the year are still emphasizing and working on the fundamentals and technique. It's not so much about scheme. So that's been our focus. Fundamentals, technique, doing the little things right. Always emphasizing our weapons, eyes, hands, hips, and feet, playing with those. And, just really winning the day and taking care of our business in the classroom as well as on the field. So this game is important. It's important because it's the next one.
Shy had an MRI. I guess that turned out to be okay, given that he was limited today.
Shy's fine. He looked good in practice. Right now, I don't see any, indication that he will not play on Sunday.
What did you see out of Josh today, and any indication on how much he could contribute?
Moved around well. Can't really, tell you exactly for one day what's going to happen at the end of the week. But I felt like, he picked the defense up well, the things that he was doing today, and he had good movement. So I'm excited about him moving forward. So we'll see at the end of the week.
What sort of shape do you think he's in? From what limited things you've
Well,
seen?
he's definitely not in game shape. I can promise you that. But he's definitely in shape the way he can move, plan drive, change direction. So when you start talking about game shape, you got to put a cap on the number of plays that he can possibly play. So along with that, I communicate with the training staff as well as the wellness, and we'll see exactly where he is from his testing in the weight room.
Would he be an option, Steve, at nickel?
Could be. Depends on exactly what we're doing. We don't want to try to put too much on him. That nickel position embodies a lot of stuff in regards to run fits, linebacker, your DB, safety and coverage as well. So we feel the need that if we bring him in, we'll probably have him on the outside.
And you're still thinking he would come in off the bench as opposed to starting?
Most definitely. I feel, as I mentioned the other day, with CJ, Keith, those guys, a lot of confidence in those two guys starting and getting the job done.
With sub packages, they like to spread out the wide receivers. If you're going up against four wide, how difficult does that make this situation, given that you have three guys who are in game shape?
I think we have more than just three guys in game shape. I mean, you still got T.J. Curry. You still have, Sam Franklin, who I feel like has tremendous asset with his speed and athleticism. That if we need to turn it into a game that we just have to play man and cover guys, I don't feel concerned about that matchup at all. So we do a lot schematically. So it's just not just I got this guy, you got that guy. So when you start talking about safeties and nickels, it's a lot that encompasses with that and how they play inside.
Steve, all the plays that Sam showed you that make an improvement on, where did that one he made against Pittsburgh, that throw to DJ where he scrambled out of the pocket, what did that show you, and as far as how far he's progressed?
Again, it just shows his athleticism, as we've been talking about from day one. Sam is a lot faster. He's a lot more athletic than people give him credit for. So he's shown that, his ability to be able to push the ball down the field. And as we saw this past week, him being able to pull the ball, which is just a different element or concern with the defensive guys, whether it's the defensive end or the linebackers, being aware of the quarterback pulling the ball and running with it. So that in itself is a good weapon to have.
Back on JC, do you know, Steve, if they did pins in that bone?
I do not know whatsoever, so I can't really, give you an educated answer on that.
You know if the surgery was done here local?
It was, and it was a success from what the training staff told me and what he told me this morning as well.
Steve, how have you had your coaches and staff prepare for this week and leading up to this week, considering it's a division foe that you've already seen, compared to how you prepared for Atlanta, which was an opponent you were going to see twice in 3 weeks? You guys haven't seen these guys in 10 weeks.
It's been a gap in between, of course, some time. So you really have to go back and look at, a lot of the previous games that they played in regards to their personnel, their defensive scheme. Some things you take from that game, some things you don't, because teams are going to attack you based off your defensive front, and particularly in the run game. Passing game is a little different. So we definitely went back and watched our game because I know they did as well. That's what we do. To make sure that we correct the things that we need to correct in regards to that. So our approach in with the coaches has been great, in my opinion. I feel like we're coming up with a great game plan on both sides of the ball as well as in special teams.
Did you have guys who weren't around Josh before, which is most of the guys, kind of come up and ask you anything about him, and guys curious about your time with him?
No, we it's business as usual. We welcome Josh to the family, and it's back to work. I think they would see, based off how he goes about his business and the things that he does in the building as well as on the field, they'll understand exactly what Josh is all about. Professional at his craft, dedicated to doing the little things right. So they'll see it.
Specific to Tampa, the way we've seen them hang around in games, make comebacks as of late, what is your message to try to counter or avoid what they've been able to do the last few years?
Well, part of our DNA is the last element is finish. We got to learn how to finish. We talked about that with the Seattle game, even last week with some of the things you saw happen late in the game on the defensive side of the ball. When you have the best to ever do it at that position, they're never out of the game, and he's shown that several times. Even against the Saints early in the year. So we really have to have that finish mentality and understand that this is going to be for 60 minutes, maybe 60 plus, as we saw what they had to do last week. So going against Brady is always going to be a tough task. And he's one of the best to do it at that position.
They've really relied a lot on quick game and extending the running game into passing to Fournette. What is the strategy for kind of maybe mitigating the impact of the passing game out of the backfield?
Well, I think you got to do a great job on the perimeter. You saw in the Cardinals game, he was getting the ball out on the perimeter quite a bit. I think they averaged, I think it was 203 after the catch. So we got to do a great job setting edges, again, working our hands, getting off blocks, and tackling in space. So that has definitely been a point of emphasis thus far this week.
Steve, a few weeks ago you voiced how you didn't want any players talking about the playoffs. You're well aware that you guys lose this game, there will be no playoffs. How are you framing this one for your players?
I think exactly what you just said. All right, it's the obvious. We know what it is, so there's no need to talk about it. It's important because it's the next one. And, we're going to continue to emphasize the things that we've been talking about all year, which is the fundamentals and technique, and doing the things that we got to do to win each day, all right? Great preparation, and hopefully right now that's going to lead to outstanding execution, We know what this game entails, and there's no need to talk about it.
During the portion of practice that we were allowed to be out there, did not see Andre. Is there an update with him?
Andre was in the training room. It was more illness today, no setback for his injuries.
Still a possibility for later in the week.
I had to wait and see exactly what kind of testing he had with the training staff.
Steve, tempo offenses, how do they impact a defense and specifically how Tampa runs their tempo? Because it seemed like they found something in Arizona when they started to go a little no huddle and go a little quicker.
Well, I think they had to based off the nature of the game, and at that point, tempo is something that we emphasize, something we always work on. Brady does a great job of getting the ball out even when it's not tempo, 2.3 seconds. All right, so you talk about how he hasn't gotten sacked much this year is because he gets the ball out quick. So we got to do a great job in coverage, all right, being positive to the receivers within our zone. We got to do a great job up front, getting our hands up, as you saw last week, knocking down a lot of balls. And, we got to mix up our coverages, to change some things up on them. So there's a lot of variation that goes into up-tempo offenses, and that's just some of the things that we got to talk about and emphasize.
Steve, how do you talk to a guy like Keith Taylor after the game he had the other week against Pittsburgh? I mean, it's not unlike Josh's experience when you had him the first time when he was young and kind of going through some ups and downs.
You got to flush it, particularly at any position, but at that position, get ready for the next play. It's all about winning that rep. So flush it, let it go, and move on. And understand that we still have confidence in you. I've seen his ability to go out and make plays. The word that we have to have across the board, we need consistency, from the guys up front to the linebackers to the back end. And really you can go on the offensive side of the ball and say the same thing. So I think Keith will be fine.
With flushing, is that kind of what you called it, what happened with Josh back in with 2012-13 when he basically got sat for over almost a year?
Well, I think you have to go through the process of really trying to mold these guys to the culture that you want, and I think Josh quickly realized that he has to be one of 11, and I think, the culture that we have in place now, guys understand that there's nobody bigger than the team or the organization, including myself. Everybody is out there really trying to fight in one accord just to get a win, and trying to be on the same page. So I don't see it being similar. It's totally two different situations and cases.
At what point was it apparent to you that this team had bought into the culture you were hoping to implement?
I saw it quickly. Even though we didn't have the results that we wanted coming off the Rams game, the physicality and the effort up front, I saw us really establishing that mentality, and running the ball the way we did in the first half against those guys who I still feel has a pretty good front. And O'Donnell is not playing anymore, but when he was in there, that was a pretty good defensive line. So I start sensing it then, and we just wanted to continue to build on that. And then now we start incorporating our play action off of and expanding and doing some different things. So I saw it early.
Todd Bowles has obviously been calling defense for a really long time in this league, so you're probably well aware of his defense. But as a fellow former, DB's coach, being in there with the offense, do you notice tendencies that maybe you or him would have calling a defense as opposed to a guy that has like a linebacker or a D-line background?
I don't know if it's so much tendencies. I think you see the game differently because it's the back end to the front, and understanding how to tie things in with coverage in front for the run fits. So Todd does a tremendous job. They're going to bring pressure from different angles. It's going to look like one thing pre-snap, and then post-snap. Sam got to do a great job of really understanding the rotation of the safeties, who's dropping out. So he makes you read on the run, and he brings things from different angles. So we got to do a great job communicating up front and putting ourselves in the right protection, so therefore Sam can go through his progression and get the ball where it needs to go.
Steve Deontay was named NFC Offensive Player of the Week this morning. When you your first experience with him, I guess would have been at camp, what were your early impressions of him, and was he on your field much?
Our early impressions was I thought he was a good running back. Even before he got here, just seeing some of the things that he did at Tennessee. And he's a guy, in my opinion, that could create, at that time, a change-up for you, when you still had Christian. But he's been able to carry a lot of the workload. Chuba's come on as well as Raheem. So I saw a lot of promise in him, and he's definitely haven't disappointed us at all.
If you were included at all in Scott's conversation before the McCaffrey trade, was was Deontay's presence kind of part of that, like willingness to trade McCaffrey because you guys thought Foreman could do it?
Well, I'm going to stay along the lines right here, Joe, of not really going back in the past, in regards to the trade. I would say we saw a lot in Deontay to give us confidence that he could be able to do it along with Chuba. That's it.
Everybody good? All right, thank you, Coach.
Appreciate you. Thank you.